5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. I'm here with a few more ideas and a lot less hair. Just a really quick idea today, and I want to talk about the difference between wellness and well-being. Often these terms get kind of used interchangeably in the space, but honestly they're not really that similar. Maybe there's a progression step from one to the other, but I think it gets overlooked to our collective detriment way too much. So let's look at the words themselves to actually start. First of all, if they were the same thing, they'd be the same word, right? That's simple enough. So there is a distinction that we draw between the two of these things. But what is it? Well, we can dig into the words themselves first. So what does well mean, right? Well means a sense of completeness, goodness, wholesomeness, right? In wellness, that ness suffix means a state or quality of, right? You can think of happiness, a state or quality of being happy, cleanliness, a state or quality of being clean. So wellness is a state or quality of being well. But then we have well-being, right? And being, of course, is your entire experience, your whole existence, the person that you are. So with well-being, we see this approach of, or this definition of your experience, your existence being well, being complete, being whole. And the reason there's an important distinction here, and this is kind of the bone I have to pick with the wellness community, is that wellness can be a distraction. And what I mean by this is, let's say you're in a really bad situation. Maybe you're in a very difficult relationship. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe you're severely depressed. Well, there are wellness practices you can do to make that situation a little nicer to deal with, but it's essentially like a coping mechanism at the end, right? You're not actually dealing with the root cause and the root problem itself. You're just making the picture a little nicer, a little softer around the edges, but it's not actually digging into the root of this, right? Say your health is not great, right? You're doing bad. Wellness practices are things like putting a slice of lemon in your water instead of dealing with core stuff like you sit for too long and your biomechanics are completely shot, right? Or you smoke, right? It's like having a nicer cigarette, right? Instead of actually trying to stop smoking overall. There's a story I love. I'm not sure where this came from, but it paints the picture quite well. Let's say you're someone starving of hunger, right? And you approach this person who's very well fed, very content. They have all the food that they need. And you ask them, you're like, well, I want to be well fed too. I'm starving. I'm dying. Like, I'm really hungry. What can I do? And they respond to you, well, when I'm full, I burp, I belch, right? That's a sign of me being well fed, right? And so you have your practice now, right? And so you go off and you're burping all the time. You're like, well, that's a symbol of being well fed. That's a practice that indicates that my body is full. And of course, we can see the ridiculousness of this, right? It's not sustenance, it's not food, so it's not actually going to feed you. But the very sneaky thing about this is that once you have this practice, you'll actually stop looking for food. You'll actually stop looking for the thing that will fix the problem that you have. And this is the core essence here of the problem or the distinction between wellness and well-being. The practices don't even look the same, right? A lot of wellness practices are small tweaks, small optimizations, small improvements that you can make to something that you're already doing. And I'm not saying here that the practice itself isn't valuable. I'm not saying that wellness is useless. I'm saying that it's secondary to well-being practices. You need to start with foundations. You need to start with first principles and well-being practices. And once those are in place, sure, then go along and look into wellness practices because they will augment what you're already doing, but you have to be doing the right thing first. Right, and so let's look at some of these practices, right? Like things that you can do that will help your well-being. There's a huge connection between the meaning that you feel in your life and about your life and your overall sense of well-being, right? So things like actually creating a coherent metaphysical orientation. Why are you here? Why do you exist? What are you doing? What are you meant to do? What is your purpose here? That's an amazing, a fruitful use of your time, because if you can sort that out, if you can create an answer that's coherent and that you believe in and that you feel deeply, that shifts everything in your life. That shifts how you perceive the world, that shifts how you interact with people. It's a massive boost. Another thing is sorting out your relationships. So if you're in a difficult relationship that you know you should leave, actually doing that. Nothing about that practice, nothing about that situation is enjoyable. It's actually very difficult. It causes a lot of stress and discomfort, but in the long term, it's incredibly powerful for your well-being. Or just making your relationship richer, actually carving out time for deep conversation, asking your partner for things that you wish you could have more of, or getting to know them on a deeper level. That's amazing practice for your well-being. Having the difficult conversations with your friends or your parents or your family in general. Again, something that can be difficult in the moment, but compounds over time and creates a profound sense of well-being, right? To have rich relationships, to feel a deep sense of love for your partner. These are the practices and the activities that actually fundamentally improve your well-being, and that you would be distracted by if you were just searching for the basic wellness practices or the latest gadget and tool that will help things just a little bit, right? Like, given the choice, have the difficult conversation with that person or those relationships than getting a foam roller, right? You can see the difference, but so often, like, that difference is stark. It's quite obvious when we lay it out like that, but so often we're just concerning ourselves with what kind of supplements do I need to take, what's the latest diet fad, all of this stuff. These are wellness practices. They are useful, but they come secondary to fundamental well-being practices. So, if anything, let's walk away from this video with, there's a difference between wellness and well-being. It's very important and should be taken seriously. Focus on fundamental well-being before wellness practices. Start with the nitty-gritty stuff because that's the stuff that matters. Then move into wellness. Right? Once you're actually doing well, wellness practices help you thrive a lot more, and they can augment this work, but they shouldn't come first, and they should definitely not come at the expense of deep well-being practices. So, let me know what you think about this. Was this correct? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or do you have any well-being practices that you really use, that you really love, like a lot? Let me know in the comments below, and we will have more coming for you soon.